Before we start this episode, here's a quick preview of what's coming. Take an animated trip around the world and see what it's like for teens living in other countries. Explore global issues and learn how unique America really is. Enjoy the rest of our free videos for all ages when you subscribe at PragerU.com.
Welcome to Cuba, the Pearl of the Antilles. Once a tropical island paradise known for its music, dance, and stunning colonial architecture, Cuba is now far from its glory days. Situated at the crossroads of the Atlantic Ocean, Gulf of America, and the Caribbean Sea, it lies just 90 miles from the US. But today, with buildings crumbling, trash-filled streets, and massive food lines, it often feels a world away. Cuba is run by a communist government that controls all aspects of life. But despite the country's decline, the communists refuse to take responsibility. Leaders blame outside forces for their failures. But the blame game isn't fooling Cubans anymore. The people are beginning to question their leaders, an act that, under communism, can have dangerous consequences. Meet Tito. He's 14 and lives in Cuba's capital city, Havana. 3 generations of his family live together in an old colonial building from the 1930s. It was once a beautiful tourist attraction, but now is a rundown apartment building with unreliable electricity and barely enough running water. Tito comes from a family of hustlers. Grandma Maribel is a dance instructor who specializes in teaching the salsa steps that have made Cuba world famous. His mom has a chronic lung illness, but when healthy, she makes crafts for Tito and his little sister Carolina to sell to tourists. And until recently, most of the family's money came from Rafa, Tito's dad, who used the family's prized classic 57 Chevy for his taxi business. But the car hasn't been driven for the last month. And not just because tourism in Cuba has slowed since the COVID-19 lockdowns, but rather because Rafa is gone. He attended a protest against the communist government. Then, he vanished. With Rafa missing, the family is scared and sad. But disappearances aren't uncommon in Cuba, and it's time for Tito to step up. Due to his size and broad shoulders, despite his natural clumsiness, the local boxing gym has had its eye on Tito for a while. When Tito asked if they had any paying work, they said no, but they did make him an offer. If he trained after school and swept and mopped the floor, they'd give him a free meal. It wasn't much, but Tito is always hungry, and it's a way to take a little pressure off his mom and grandma. Cuba wasn't always this way. When Grandma Maribel was Tito's age, her family had wealth, land, and a future. That is, until Fidel Castro's revolution changed everything. With promises of equality and prosperity for everyone, especially the poor, Castro led a violent uprising that took complete control of the country in 1959. He received widespread support from the people, but once in power, things didn't go as they were supposed to. In the name of fairness, most wealthy Cubans had their homes and businesses taken from them. Grandma Maribel still remembers the day her family was forced to leave their beloved home. But instead of honoring his revolutionary promises, Castro didn't redistribute wealth to the poor. Instead, he took control of what little people had and made it almost impossible to make money in Cuba again. Castro fully embraced communism and ruled as a dictator for almost 50 years. Dissent was silenced, and Cuba's economic divide of extreme rich and extreme poor became worse. Now, over 60 years since the revolution, the Cuban people are more poor than before and have little chance that things will change. Public protests are rare, but in recent years, they've grown more frequent. Cubans are tired of false promises, and the government is growing desperate to maintain its control. Tito knows speaking out is dangerous, but his little sister, Carolina, is fearless. Unlike Tito, who tries to stay out of trouble, Carolina has never been afraid to challenge authority. She refuses to accept the government's lies and isn't afraid to say so, even when it gets her into trouble. After punching a classmate for making a comment about her missing father, Carolina was put under Tito's watch. She now has to follow him everywhere, including the boxing gym. One day, she didn't show, and Tito was sick with worry. He searched the city, but found her back at the apartment. She had been at a protest, following in their dad's footsteps. "You could have been arrested," Tito scolded. "We have to do something," Carolina fired back. "The government took Dad. We can't just pretend everything is fine." "You need to calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down," Carolina shouted and began throwing her fists wildly. Tito awkwardly ducked her punches, and with a loud crack, one of her tiny fists found the wall. The old wall trembled and cracked, and pieces fell to the floor. Dust filled the air, and both siblings froze at the sound of their mother coughing in another room. "Are you two happy?" Grandma Maribel asked while entering the room. "Sit down. I guess I need to remind you of our history, as a family and a country." Over glasses of fresh sugarcane juice, Grandma retold the stories of her youth, and those from the childhood of the kids' parents. She explained how the struggles of Cuba are nothing new. Communism didn't bring equality, and it never ended poverty. It only made things worse. Many generations have now dealt with food rations, electricity blackouts, water shortages, and loved ones disappearing when they complained. Maribel told her grandkids, "More people than ever before are waking up to the evils of communism, and that's a really good thing. But you two children have no control over our government. I need you to concentrate on things within your control." "Like what?" asked Carolina. "Well, for starters, your brother struggled dodging your tiny punches. I'm going to help him with his footwork, and you are too." Boxing is more than a sport in Cuba. It's a national identity. Despite having far less resources than most of their competition, Cuba is a traditional boxing powerhouse and has won more Olympic medals than any other country except the United States. Cuban boxers are famous for a unique style that is truly Cubano, strategic, defensive, and rhythmic. Many compare it to a dance, with footwork as precise as a salsa routine. During their first training session, Grandma Maribel played music and taught Tito dance steps. Then, with the help from props around the apartment, Carolina pretended to be a similar-sized opponent for Tito to try his new moves on. For weeks, the three practiced around the living room, shared lots of laughs, and eventually, Tito's footwork started getting pretty good. At the gym, people began noticing a change in Tito. Not only was the big, clumsy kid getting lighter on his feet, but he also seemed more confident. Tito felt he was ready for a match, but wasn't sure. His feisty little trainer, however, who now never misses a day in the gym, was. "Hey!" Carolina shouted at the gym owner one day. "My brother's getting good. Don't you think it's about time he gets a fight?" It's the day of Tito's first boxing match. His dad hasn't been found yet and isn't in the crowd. But Grandma and Mom are in the stands, and Carolina is in his corner. The bell rings and the fight is on. Tito's opponent throws the first punch. It lands hard. He stumbles, but stays on his feet. "Dance, Tito!" Carolina shouts from the corner. He remembers his training, his footwork, his rhythm. Dodge, jab, cross, hook. Each move reminds him of why he's here. Not just to box. He fights for his family, for his missing father, for the hope of something better. A better Cuba. He's hit with a few more tough shots, but he gives some good ones in return. Dodge, jab, cross, hook. Just like his country, Tito fights on. It's the Cuban way.